Hey everyone, I'm Pion and welcome to Opus Magnum. What is Opus Magnum, you ask? I like to call it an alchemical engineering move marbles with mechanical arms puzzle game. It's developed by Zachtronics, the guys behind Spacecam, Infinifactory and Chance.io, etc. It just entered Steam Early Access and this is what it looks like. So this game is exactly what I said it is about, moving marbles with mechanical arms. So in this level, which is the first level after the tutorial, we have to create stabilized water by bonding a salt atom and a water atom. And we do that by taking those water atom spawners down here. So those are the spawners. This is where we have to put the result, the product. These are the spawners. They're called reagents. Well, not the spawners itself, but the atoms are called reagents. And you have two water spawners in this level. And we take them and we can grab water from there with the mechanical arm. And we can program those mechanical arms by just putting commands down here. So there's a grab command, for example, and then a rotate command. And rotate and drop and rotate back, for example. And if we start a program, you can see what it's doing. So it grabs the marbles and puts them somewhere else. And we can use that to our advantage by using the bonding glyph and the glyph of calcification. So that's a glyph of bonding, that's a glyph of calcification. The glyph of calcification turns an elemental marble into a salt marble. So we can use that to turn one of the water marbles into salt. And the glyph of bonding, well, bonds two marbles together. So what we can do is we put that here, put that there, put that, whoops, this here, and this one over there, and then we build a similar setup on the other side, like this probably. Take another arm, put it there we go, and now we can program those arms. The first arm actually is programmed correctly, I think. So yeah, as you can see, it goes over the salt and transports in the salt. You can step through the program by pressing the tab key. So first cycle it grabs, second cycle it moves. As soon as the elemental touches the glyph or gets over the glyph, it will activate the glyph, so it will transform into salt in this case, and then we drop it onto the glyph of bonding and the arm resets. And we now do the same thing with the other arm. For that we can actually copy the code for the first one. That's an important thing because the game doesn't tell you how to do that. But what you can do is you can select multiple commands or parts as well, that works as well, and hold the control or command button, depending on your operating system. Hold the command button or control, and then drag and drop it to copy. You can do the same thing with parts on the field like that. The game doesn't tell you that. You can also select multiple of them and then copy them like that. The game, as I said, the game doesn't tell you that you can do that. That's a very important feature though, so the game should tell you. There's another thing the game doesn't tell you. You can grab things and then press A and D to rotate them. The game doesn't tell you that either. I always did that from hand until I learned that this is possible. So those are important features. Anyway, back to what we are doing. Copy this code and now just modify it slightly by making the rotation the other way around, like that. And now we forgot the input. Where did the input go? I think I might have bugged the game. No, there we go. The scroll just didn't work for some reason. Not sure. There we go. As you can see, we create the stabilized water, and now we just have to get it out there. Therefore, we're gonna use a different arm. Actually, let's demonstrate piston arms. So we can have a piston arm. A piston arm is a little bit more expensive than a regular arm, but it can, besides rotating, also extend and retract. And we can use that to just do this. So we wait for the arms to drop their elements into the glyph, and then we're gonna grab the thing, retract the arm, drop the product, extend the arm again to reset the arm. And now, as you can see, it will do exactly that, put the element to the output, and we get a nice cycle. Very important, you might have noticed earlier, in this game, elements or marbles or reagents, whatever, atoms, must not collide with each other. When they collide, the machine will stop and you have to change your layout. And they also must not collide with the bases of the arms. So that's important as well. So arms and atoms, or arm bases and atoms, must not collide. If they do, you have to change it. So that's very important. That makes some levels a little bit more tricky, or way more tricky than they would be otherwise. So that's important to note. And also, you might wondering what's going on down here. This is the game helping me to sync all the things. So the game will always sync all the programs, and it does so by doing multiple things. First of all, it detects what's the longest program, in this case 6 commands, and then it will pad all the other programs to be at the same length. So you can see that those 2 squares are highlighted a little bit, which means they're padded to make this program 6 cycles long as well. And then it will actually cut off everything behind their, like, it will take the command line that is the shortest or the most on the left, and then cut all the other ones and try to, if possible, and put the commands to the right of that bar on the left. So this is actually exactly the same as if I would do this. I just would require a different starting position. So this does the same thing. So you can see it's a little easier to understand what's going on, but it's easier to program it this way in some cases, because you can just, like, I don't have to know when I have to wrap, so it will automatically wrap it. As you can see, and if you follow the highlighting, it actually like highlights the steps over here. Or if we step through it, you can see that this one, god damn it, that's not what I wanted. Well, that's pressing escape gets you out of everything. I didn't want it to do that. Actually, I wanted to go back to the level. So if you step through it, you can see that those commands are executed at the same time as these are, and that's just a game trying to help you a little bit. So yeah, okay, so let's let's run this through for another time to show you the histograms, because this is a Zachtronics game, so we have histograms. So there we go, histograms. There are 3 different optimization categories. You can go for cost, so take the cheapest parts, and only very few parts. Then you can go for cycles, so go as fast as possible, or you can go for area. I'm gonna actually show you how area works. So if we hold this or press 2, then you can see that there's an area highlighted. Every part that is used for something at some point during the production of the thing will count towards the area score, and the smaller the better, obvious, for all of those actually. Okay, so let's go to one of the a little bit more complex levels. Let's go to waterproof sealant. And this one requires us to build this thing, waterproof sealant, which consists of 2 air and 1 water element. And we only have 2 reagents, 1 for water and 1 for air each. And now we have to find a good solution to build that thing. So let's take a look what we have here. We also have this glyph of bonding, or glyph of multi-bonding. And that works quite nicely to create a thing like that. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna put that here. We're gonna use a piston arm here. You could do it different ways, but actually no, let's not use a piston arm. Let's demonstrate a different feature, but you could do it with the piston arm as well. Let's demonstrate tracks. So this is a track. That's not what I wanted to do with it. There we go. This is a track. You can build a track like this. Not useful in this level, but you can do it. And then you can put an arm on that track. And you can make it so you can make it move on that track. So you can give this arm the command to grab and then move towards the plus direction, which is to the right in this case, by putting the plus thing in here. Do that twice, and then we drop. Oops, that's not drop. Then we drop and move towards the minus direction. As you can see, it does exactly that. Okay, not necessarily what we want, but that's the track. You could also obviously move it along like a track around the level or something. In this case, I just simulated a piston. You could just do the same thing with the piston, which actually would be cheaper in this case because tracks cost 5 gold per tile, and the piston arm only costs 10 gold more than the regular arm. So yeah, but let's keep the track because it's nice. And yeah, let's demonstrate another feature of the game. So instead of doing this, like this is basically telling the arm to reset to its starting position. Instead of doing this manually, we could use this command, the C command, reset instruction. We can just put that there, and this will automatically drop all the hold elements, or drop all the hold atoms, or all the atoms the arm holds, and then resets the arm to the starting position. So in this case, it will take the same time. It's just a shorthand. It's easier to write down, not necessarily easier to read there. So sometimes it's useful to write it out all by instruction by instruction. But if you just want to reset, it's sometimes easier to just put down the reset instruction, and that will do exactly the same. And as you can see, as soon as you start a program, it will actually translate that into the commands you require for that operation. So that's quite neat. So next we're gonna do is we grab the other air and then we move towards the thing once and then reset again, basically. So now we do this, bap, 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 and we have what we want. Now we only have to get the earth in place. And for that, we're going to use another arm over here. And I think like that, probably. I think like that. Okay, so now arm 2 has to move in the earth thingy into that slot. So water, not earth, sorry. Earth and water look very similar. If you take a look here, that's like they have a similar color. They're both an upside down triangle. Earth has like this crossing line, but a horizontal line, but it's fairly similar, so I confuse them from time to time. So grab it, rotate to the right, and then we have to wait for the water to get into the glyph. So when the second water drops, which is at this point, we can move again. Move, that's not moving. There is a certain order of actions, or yeah, a certain order of actions in every cycle. So in every cycle, first all arms with the drop command will drop their atoms, then all arms with the grab command will grab, and then all arms with the move command will move. So yeah, always remember in this game, drop, grab, move. You can do all those 3 things in one cycle if you want to. This means that one arm can drop while the other one is actually grabbing the same thing in one cycle, and that works out. It also means, since moving is at the end of the cycle, that you always have to wait to pick something up to the, when it just got moved there. You have to wait for the next cycle to pick it up. So one arm moves it to a location, and then the other one. So usual or a common pattern is one arm moves it, and in one cycle, then drops it in the next one, and the other one grabs it in the same one. So yeah, that was a little bit. That was a complicated explanation for a fairly simple concept, but anyway. So we rotate it there, drop it, and then reset. Let's just do that. So that should actually work, I think. There we go. As you can see, that's exactly how it works. So that's pretty good. You can, however, optimize this a little bit. If you want to go quicker than this, if you take a look here, the instruction set for the first arm is getting padded by 2. And that's actually unnecessary, because it doesn't have to. What we can do is we can move those 2 commands up by 2, or actually by more if we want to. We can actually move them there, I think. And that will not make a difference though, but like it doesn't matter if we put it there or there. That's basically the same thing. But we can put them there, and it will still work. And now the second instruction set got shorter, so it's quicker now, and we will get a better cycle than in the last attempt. So this time we got 60, and the last one was, I don't know, a little slower than that. So that's a fairly easy way to optimize things. And again, the game is wrapping here. If you don't like the wrapping, like sometimes, especially if you have like 5 arms or something that you all have to sync up, and it's sometimes easier to don't use those helps. So instead of using the reset thingy, you do it yourself, because it's easier to actually see what is happening in those cases. Like you can do that. Actually, oh yeah, no, that was one too many. So there we go. So you can just put it in there manually, and we can do the same thing here. So we drop and rotate back twice, but instead of having this just rotate over, we just take those 2 commands and put them at the beginning. And now you see everything in sync as it happens, and we have to change the starting position for the arm though in that case. And then it's a little easier to line up the commands and sync them in the correct order, because it's easier to see what is actually going on here. So that's a useful technique I found, to actually not use some of those usability features. But sometimes they were useful, so it's good that they're in the game, but I sometimes avoid them to make it easier to understand what's going on. Okay, one more level, refined gold. This has a different mechanic. I did show you that earlier. There is this elemental table. We have the 4 core elements. We have salt, and we have death and life. And then we have 6 metals: lead, tin, iron, copper, silver, and gold, and quicksilver. And we can merge the metals with quicksilver to get the next better metal. So we can merge lead and quicksilver to tin, and silver and quicksilver to gold, and so on. And we do that by using the glyph of projection, which is this one. And oops. So that allows us to, well, yeah, create gold. So what we do is we take some arms. You could also do it with the piston arm. Let's do it with the piston arm on the other side, actually. You can do it with the piston arm. You can do it with the track, whatever you want. You can also make the arms longer. Well, maybe not this one, but you could also like do it like this if you want to. Like there are lots of different options. The arm can be up to three tiles long. That's the maximum. Same for the piston arm. Cannot go longer than that. Okay, so let's put that in there really quick. So we start with arm 1, which will grab a Quicksilver, rotate it onto the Cliff of Projection, then drop it, and then rotate back. And now we're gonna repeat that 4 times or 5 times in total, because we need 5 Quicksilver to turn lead into gold. So there's another instruction I didn't talk about yet, and that's the repeat instruction. That's actually kind of useful. You put it in there and we'll just repeat whatever happened until then. So it will take those 4 commands and put them there. If you step through it, you can see that it actually translates that to the exact same pattern as before. And now we can put that in here 4 times, and now we have moved 5 Quicksilver to the Glyph of Projection. Okay, the other arm has to grab the lead, extend, that's not extending, that's extending, extend, then wait for a bit, and at some point extend again, probably here I think, then drop and then reset by retracting twice. And now you can see how the metal gets upgraded with every Quicksilver that goes in. Then we got gold and put it to the output. There we go, and repeat. And again, we can optimize this a little bit by doing the same trick as we did in last level. We can move those, I think, only by 1 though. If you move them by 2, I think it doesn't work out. No, it actually still works out. Okay, well, fine then. So we can make the whole cycle a little shorter by padding them like this, or a little easier to read sometimes. Do it like that and have the arm like that. And that will do the same thing, just a little bit quicker than before. So that's kind of nice. There are other awesome parts, like for example this thing, which can be useful in some situations, but I didn't find many uses yet, to be honest. There's also this one and this one, and yeah, you know, the other. This is a Glyph of Unbonding, which can break a bond, obviously, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. Let's talk about the tutorial and stuff a little bit. So the game has a tutorial which is 7 lessons and then one tutorial level, kind of. Well, it's the first real level actually. So 7 lessons, and they're fairly, well, not really actually. Yes, the first one is not even a lesson really. It's just a demonstration. It doesn't let you do anything. It just shows you what you can do, and it have those pop-ups here, and uses a lot of different mechanics already. So this is a fairly complex one for the first few levels in comparison to the first few levels. And it shows you what you can do just to like give you an idea what this game is about. And the lessons afterwards actually can be edited by you, but it tells you exactly what to do. So in this level you can only edit the command track, and it tells you exactly what to do. And it's fairly straightforward. So the tutorial is very, very hand-holdy and very straightforward. I found it a little boring. Like, I was a little bit disappointed if you compare it to tutorials of other games, other Zachtronics games, like Infinity Factory, for example, that had a great tutorial. Also had Ironclad Tactics that had an amazing tutorial. TS100 and Chance.io, okay, they're not. I don't count them really because they're a special case with their printed manual thingy. Okay, all the Zachtronics games had terrible tutorials. I'm not sure about Space Cam, and never played that a lot, so I can't really remember. Construct Engineer of the People had like the worst, not even a tutorial actually, but the worst manual ever, I guess. But like Zachtronics did show with their more recent games that I can do good tutorials, and this is not them showing that, unfortunately. It's fairly short, like you will only take like 10 to 15 minutes to get through that, I guess, but still, you're not challenged at all during the tutorial, which is a little boring. And then actually the first level is surprisingly challenging. Like, it's not hard in comparison to the other levels, but for a first level, after just having like very linear tutorials, this is actually kind of tricky to solve. So I was a little bit surprised by it. Pleasantly though, but I don't know. I think they could just make some of those lessons a little bit more open and give you some easy challenges to figure out for yourself, and then you're a little bit better prepared and a little bit better entertained until you get when you get to the stabilized water level. So overall, let's talk about the the world a little bit. It's kind of a fantasy setting, not high fantasy though, but there's this alchemy thing going on. Basically, you can transform things into other things, which can be useful. But it's a fantasy city, or fictional city, I guess, with different houses fighting over power. And you are the head alchemist for one of those houses. And it's not quite clear why the houses are fighting. I think it's actually just about power, as far as I know, so far anyway. And there's not, that's a setting. So you're in one of those houses and you're involved with the other house, and you build useful things. So the first chapter is just about useful things like face powder or airship fuel, while the second chapter is where the war starts, where you build some weapons like rocket propellant or explosive vial and stuff like that, and armor filament and things like that. So that's where the story goes. The world didn't grab me so far, I have to say. Neither did the story. The writing, however, is pretty good. Like it's Zachtronics level of good. So it's fairly short to read, because it's always only a few lines of dialogue. Like the story is always delivered the same style, right? You get, in the beginning of level, you get a little bit of dialogue, not a lot of lines, which are usually pleasant to read. Not super funny, but you get to chuckle from time to time. And they're just, as I said, pleasant to read. Then you solve the level, then you get more dialogue. That's how it goes. And between the levels, you get those journals, they're not journals, those conversations between multiple people, and sometimes letters or textbook pages or whatever. Not double clicking. There we go. So that's how the story is presented. And as I said, it's well written, but the story and the world didn't grab me so far. But that's not the focus of the game, obviously. The focus of the game is the mechanics, and they're pretty awesome, I have to say. Let me show you a few levels from Chapter 3. Well, actually, let's first talk about difficulty curve, and then go to Chapter 3. So the interesting thing to note about Chapter 1 and 2, or the game in general, but especially those two chapters, is that in comparison to other Zachtronic games, the levels are easy to solve, or fairly easy, comparably easy. They're not easy to optimize. There's still a lot of depth. You can put a lot of thought into optimizing for the different categories, especially cycles. But just solving the levels is fairly straightforward in a lot of situations for most levels, especially in Chapter 1 and 2. Chapter 3, it gets a little bit more tricky, but when you get there, you solved a lot of levels already, and you're fairly good prepared for level 3, Chapter 3. And they're not ridiculously hard. They're just a little more complex than in Chapter 2, which just seems fine to me. So this is interesting, because other Zachtronic games usually don't do that. Like especially TIS 100 and Jensen IO, and I think Space Cam as well. All of them had levels that were really hard to solve already. Not even thinking about optimizing yet. So they had a pretty high entry bar, I would say. And Infinifactory was a little bit better about this. Like solving levels was, in a lot of cases, very easy, but not in all cases. There were a bunch of levels, especially as soon as you, not necessarily in the first campaign, but or first chapter, but in later chapters or middle chapters, some levels could be really hard to solve already. Like just solving it was a challenge. Even the first chapter, to be honest. Like a few levels where, when you get there, like with the experience you have at this point, can be quite tricky to just solve. It's not as bad as in TIS 100 and Jensen IO, but it's definitely harder than in this game. In this game, it's really, really easy, or not really easy, but comparably easy to just solve the levels. But you can still have a lot of fun optimizing them, and you can also have a lot of fun to just solve them in a nice way, which is interesting, because this allows people who are not as experienced in these kind of puzzle games to enjoy the game as well. You can get a lot of satisfaction from just solving the level, fairly straightforward, and then make the solution nice, like either symmetric or, I don't know, like a nice pattern or something along those lines, or just use a cool trick that you figured out. And that, even if you get terrible scores, that can still be very satisfying. As in general, if you compare this game with Infinifactory, I preferred the level or the puzzle solving process in Infinifactory over the one in this one. This one is still fun. Like the level solving itself is still fun, but I preferred the core mechanics in Infinifactory. But the satisfaction you get for looking at your completed solution is even a bit better, even a little bit better than Infinifactory in Opus Magnum. So Opus Magnum actually beats Infinifactory in this point. Like, just watching your solution play out gives you a very, very satisfying feeling in a lot of situations, especially if it's a beautiful solution. So this is pretty interesting to me because it just broadens the audience a little bit for those kind of games. Like, what I want to do is, I want to do an experiment. I want to give this game to my wife. And she's not into puzzle games at all, especially not into like programming puzzle games or anything of the sorts. Like, that's not how she thinks. That's not what she does. And that's not what she's good at. She's not good at abstract thinking. She's more good. She's better in different things. But I think she might actually be like enjoy this game at least for a while. At least like the first few levels could be fun to her. So and I would never try that with any of the other Zachtronics games. Maybe Infinifactory, but maybe like the first 2 levels or something. But after that, probably not. But in this game, I can imagine this actually working out. So this definitely broadens the God damn it. I forgot the word, mind blank. Anyway, I said it a minute ago. So that's good. That's good. It can reach more players, I think, more different players. So that's cool. But it still has the depth of other Zachtronic games. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so chapter 3 gets a little bit more complicated. So we have alcohol separation in here, which is a cool level because it introduces a new mechanic. 2 actually. First, this glyph of duplication. What it does is, if you put a salt element or a salt atom on this part of the glyph and then an elemental atom like fire on this part of the glyph, it will transform the salt in the element on the other side. So if you put fire here, the salt will become fire. If you put earth here, the salt becomes earth. And that allows you to, well, transform salt into elements. It's basically the opposite to this glyph, which turns element into salt, as you could see in the first level. And also it introduces this wheel, the Van Berlo's wheel. Van Berlo is a famous alchemist in the game's in-game lore. And this one is just a rotating wheel of different atoms. You cannot drop them or anything, you can just rotate them. And you can use that to put it over that one, over the glyph of duplication, to transform salt into whatever you want. So in this level, your input is this thing, like your input is bonded already. It's distilled alcohol. So you have fire, water, and 2 salt bond together. And what you actually require in this level is separate outputs of all the 4 elements. So to solve this, what the game wants you to do is to turn with the glyph of duplication and the Van Berlo's wheel, these 2 salt atoms into earth and air, and then split the whole thing and separate the outputs, separate it to the outputs. So that's interesting. And then there is the water purifier level, which I'm looking forward to solve, which is a little bit more complicated to actually put together. So in this one, you have 1 water and 1 air input, and you have to take 6 air atoms and put them, salt atoms, and put them around the water atom. So the straightforward solution to that one, well, kind of straightforward, is to take 6 air elementals, calcificate them into salt, and then put them around the water and put that into the output. And you probably can use this glyph for doing that and then rotate it. Oh yeah, I didn't actually show you that, but an arm can actually rotate whatever it grabs. So there's a rotate command as well. So we can put like a thing in there and then rotate it again or something along those lines. Yeah, but if you want to optimize, you could also think about like taking a few water elements or water atoms and transmutate them into salt as well, because that makes the whole process quicker, because you don't have to wait for 6 air atoms. So this seems to be an interesting level. I'm looking forward to solving that, and it gives you a good impression on how their more advanced levels look like, because putting this thing together might be a little tricky, especially if you want to optimize for time or whatever, actually, whatever category. Let's talk about the different categories. So, well, let's go to a different level so I can actually show you the histograms. So let's take one I actually solved. So then, well, actually, maybe we take one of the earliest to not spoil anything. Let's take the refined gold. Actually, we see them fine here. Okay, never mind. So I quickly mentioned them earlier, the 3 categories: cost, cycles, and area. So in my experience so far, Optimizing for cost is pretty straightforward, at least for the first 2 worlds, and someone else told me that it's the same for the 3rd world, or it's similar to in the 3rd world at least. It's fairly easy to optimize for cost because you can solve most of the levels by just using 1 glyph of bonding and 1 regular arm, and sometimes a glyph of calcification, and that's it in most cases. You only require 1 arm in most cases. Sometimes you need a piston arm, but that's about it. And then you just have to program that one, so set it up in the correct position and then program that 1 arm to do the whole operation, which gets a pretty lengthy program. But it's usually fairly straightforward to do. It's not that interesting to me anyway. Area is, well, different depending on the level. In some levels, area is actually exactly the same as cost. In a lot of levels, I optimized for cost and got the optimum in area as well. But there are other levels where that is not the case, and especially in more complex levels, that's not true anymore. And in those cases, it can be very challenging to optimize for area because you swing those big thingies around, those big contraptions around, and they will actually use a lot of area. And to optimize that away, to optimize the amount of area used is actually quite tricky, especially for me. I don't really enjoy optimizing for area, I have to say. I'm not good at it. I kind of lack the sort of thinking I require for that for some reason. So what I enjoy optimizing the most is cycles. Optimizing for cycles is really fun for me in this game. It's pretty challenging. You have to look very deeply in how the mechanics work exactly, how is the order of things happening and what does this mean exactly, how fast can you get output out of the reagents spawners, how fast can you drop things into the product output, things like that, what is your bottleneck, and how do you set up all the arms and thingies to actually speed up the process correctly. And that's quite interesting, and that's the most interesting category for me so far. So, yeah, the categories are fairly well, especially the strikers category is very nice. The other 2 are, cost is a little bit boring, I think. It's not the best category in here, but it doesn't hurt that it's there, obviously. I couldn't think of a better category than cost, but I don't know. I find this fairly boring. And area is a good category, I just don't enjoy it personally, but it's still a good category to optimize for it, especially in the more complex. It's fairly boring in the smaller levels, but it gets more interesting in the complex levels. So that's a pretty good category. Cycles is interesting in all the levels though, so that's definitely my favorite category. Category. So, okay. Cool. What else? Well, there is a minigame, a game in the game. It's called Sigma's Garden, and you have to collect marbles, or match marbles, basically. And the main character is annoyed by the fact that the other character is calling them marbles, by the way, which is fairly entertaining. Basically, you can match the elements with each other, so air with air, fire with fire, stuff like that. You can match salt with any of the others. And you can match quicksilver with the metals, but you have to start with the lead. There's 1 lead, 1 tin, etc., and 1 silver, 1 gold, and 5 quicksilver, and you have to match 1 quicksilver with 1 of each of the metals. And you have to start with the lead though. You cannot match tin before you didn't match lead, and so on. And the important thing is that you can only activate marbles that have enough free spaces surrounding them. So they need 3 free slots surrounding them, which are all connected to each other. So this, for example, has 3 free slots, 1, 2, 3, but they're not connected to each other, so it's not actually activatable. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, and therefore it's active, and I can click it and combine it with the other one. And now this unlocks this one, because now this one has 3 connect to each other, and so does this one. So this is how this works. It's as soon as you get the basic strategy down, it's fairly easy to beat. And not super interesting, but I enjoyed it until I beat it 2 times, I guess, and then actually until I beat it the first time. Afterward, it got fairly boring, I have to say. It's not that deep or complex. You can look a few steps ahead, but it's not even necessary in most cases. Just go for a basic strategy, which I'm not gonna spoil, but it's pretty obvious. And then just look for the parts you need and try to match the things as required. But it's a nice touch. It's a nice touch, and you get a little bit extra bonus story when you get to 10 games, 10 wins. So I guess I have to do that at some point, but not right now. So also there is the journal. The journal gives you some special levels, and this will, I think, like update throughout the game. So there will be more issues of the journals. This is just bonus levels, basically. And then there's a puzzle editor, which, well, you can create your own puzzles, and there's Steam Workshop integration already. And there are a bunch of puzzles in there already. I saw like 7 or 8 puzzles already. I think they were all by the same guy, though. But the game's only old ones, like since one day. So that's all implemented already, works well. In general, the game is early access, yes, but it's Zachtronics early access. And even for Zachtronics early access, which is always very polished to begin with, this is even further. Like Zach even wrote himself that he considered skipping early access altogether for this game, but then decided to do it anyway. So this is basically a finished product. What will happen over the course of the next few months will be polish and balance changes, like a few levels will probably change or change order and things like that to make it a little bit, like the learning curve a little bit smoother. But so far the learning curve was pretty good, I have to say. I'm not sure if I agree with having refined gold as the second level or first level. Like I think that should be like probably swap with face powder or something, or maybe even go further down the line. So you just get the basics down before you get to the metal merging mechanics. But that's, well, we'll see. Maybe they'll do that. Depends on the feedback they get, I guess. So yeah, overall there will be 5 chapters, as you probably saw already. And then there is the options menu. Let's not skip that. It even has dialogue, so that's cool. Oh, actually, I didn't continue that. Oh yeah, because I didn't beat the prologue yet. So let's go through that. Why not? Finally, the setup is getting close to usable. Well, actually, no. That's an unnecessary story spoiler, and you probably don't even get what's going on anyway because it didn't sort of products. Let's not do that. Let's just go through the option menu, shall we? So there you have 6 different languages, which is pretty cool. So that's good. Resolution options, full screen or window. Full screen is, however, borderless window mode. So this is not actually real full screen. 2 separate sound sliders. That's good. Quick hotkeys is an option I recommend turning on. If you don't have this on, it's default to off. If you have it off, you have to. If you put down commands, you have to press the button, like D, for example, on the keyboard, hold it, and then left click where you want the command. It's easier to just hover the mouse. Like if you turn it on, you just hover the mouse, press D, and it will place a command there. You don't have to click with the mouse. It's a little easier in my opinion. But you can choose whatever you like. And I'm not sure what this is about. I assume that you can put in a code here that will unlock something. Puzzle archive. I don't know what this means. I have no idea. Well, I guess I'm gonna find out at some point. I don't know. Overall, I really enjoyed. I mean, I expected. Like, I was not surprised by how much I enjoyed it. Like, it's not surpassing my expectations, but that's just because my expectations for Zachtronic games are freaking high. Like, they're all really, really good puzzle games. So when I saw there's a new Zachtronics game, I was certain that it would be great, and it's exactly that. It's not more than that. Like, it's not fantastic. Like, it's still a fantastic, but in comparison to other Zachtronic games, like, I enjoyed Infinity Factory a little bit more than this. Not much, but it's a little bit better. Or I personally prefer it a little bit over this one. But this is fresh and new, and I played a lot of Infinity Factory, so this is well worth my time right now. Also, TIS 100, I preferred that one a little bit over this one as well, I think. So, yeah, but it's still, as I said, it didn't surpass my expectations, but that's just because my expectations were really, really high to begin with. So, yeah, the game is great. It's fantastic. It's another Zachtronics title. Nobody's surprised ever. So, I definitely recommend it. If you're super patient, I guess you can wait for early access. I usually recommend that with all early access games. However, for Zachtronic games, it's not as important as with others. Like, the game will not change much anymore. It's a complete experience already. If you're not looking for the super awesome, perfect learning, difficulty curve, like if you're a little afraid, like if you're not super experienced in those kind of games and you're a little afraid of difficulty spikes, then it might be worthwhile to hold off and wait for full release, because they will try to iron those out. But besides that, the game has a lot of quality of life and usability features already. Like, there's almost nothing missing. They could be documented a little bit better, like the copying of things that should be documented, which it is not. But they're all there. Like, it works really well. Like, the only thing I'm missing is, well, not the only thing, but one of the important things, I would like to have this, like, I want to see my solutions and the scores for my solutions at the same time as the level list, so that I can just click through it with one click and click through them. And now I have always to like switch between the two. I just want to see both at the same time. I would like to see that, because that makes it easier to look through levels. Because if you can't remember what the name actually is, then it's just easier if you get it. It would also be nice to just like to see maybe what you require to build in this level already on this screen as well. Like have it all in one screen: the level names, the histograms of my solutions, and the product for the level, so you can get a really nice overview of what to do. And if you can't fit the dialogue in here anywhere, then make it like a pop-up or something, I don't know. But that's a very minor nitpick, obviously. So that's just the option menu, right? Yeah, okay. Never clicked that before. So yeah, I recommend it highly. It's called Magnus Open. No, it's not. It's called Opus Magnum, sorry. Link is in the description below. I'm TH Pion. Thanks all for watching. Have fun and see you next time.